All right. Hello, WLRN listeners and followers. I am coming at you live from Madison from the lovely WLRN studios, and we have Austin
Everybody line up and
DeVille
okay, turn on the camera.
in St. Augustine, Florida, who is coming to you live from there for an event that WDI USA is putting on. Hello, Austin.
Hello.
Can you tell us a little bit about the event that's happening today?
Yeah, we're just coming out to this public park to say a few things about International Women's Day and Trans Awareness Day, and to just give a voice. We're going to give women a voice today, just to celebrate International Women's Day.
Great, and I see we have matching t-shirts on.
Yeah, everyone who owns one wore it today.
Yeah, International Women's Day is for adult human females. That was the tagline that WDI USA came up with. Can I ask you, why are you in St. Augustine, Florida, and not some other city in the United States today?
Well, one of our volunteers offered her home for us all to gather and organize this event. So we just decided to do it here because it was close, and we all wanted to gather with her and just kind of take advantage of that as an opportunity.
Fantastic. And I see that we've got our first comment. I'd just like to welcome our online audience. Thank you for showing up, Shannon. She says, good morning and congratulations to every detransitioner out there. And that's right, this day coincides with the National Detrans Awareness Day. So it's like International Women's Day is on March 8th, and then the weekend after we've got Detrans Day, and the whole month of March is Women's History Month. So it's like we all have these things that we can rally around and gather around, and it's great to see you and other women out in Florida today.
Yeah, this is a really friendly little town. It looks like tourists are kind of wandering around. There's little tourist mobiles and buses and trolleys and groups of tourists going on tours of the park and stuff like that. Little dogs walking around, and it's just really lovely here. The weather is gorgeous. So we're going to go ahead and get started with speeches since it's noon. So our first speaker is going to be Dansky.
All right.
Testing. Okay, great. Hello. Happy International Women's Day and Detransitioners Awareness Day. My name is Dansky, and I'm the president of Women's Declaration International USA. Thanks so much for having us here today. I thought I'd begin my remarks by talking about a few things that happened today in history that are particularly relevant to women. On this day in 1776, a public notice appeared in local papers recognizing the sacrifices of women to the cause of the American Revolution. We see you, Turf Island. Cheers, sisters. On this day in 1884, the state of Mississippi authorized the first state-supported college for women. It was called the Mississippi Industrial Institute and College. Perhaps unsurprisingly, it was initially open only to white women. That changed in 1966 when a group of fearless Black women demanded admission. Their names were Diane Hardy Thompson, Laverne Greenleach, Barbara Turner, Jacqueline Edwards, Mary Flowers, and Eula Hauser. 50 years later, in 2016, the university awarded each of those women medals of excellence. On this day, in 1912, the Girl Scouts was founded. And finally, on this day, in 1974, Wonder Woman first aired on ABC. Today, Linda Carter, who played her, claims that some men are women. Ms. Carter, those of us assembled here today would like a word with you. I want to talk today about cultivating a deliberate resistance strategy. We cannot wallow in despair or lose our minds to desperation. I have been, for days now, subjected to a concerted attack from someone who hates women to an inundation of email messages that contain some of the most vile images of violence and pornography that I have ever seen. These email messages are directed to me personally and to numerous other people, some women, some men, who have been involved in efforts to protect women and children. We need to name the problem. We are here today to talk in defense of women speaking. We are here today to talk in defense of women being women. Women are allowed to be. Our opposition simply does not want women to exist. We need to be fearlessly clear about that. It is just as bad as it seems. So-called trans is not just some weird thing that's going to go away. It is instead the most contemporary version of male hatred of women. It is the new misogyny. The very point of it is for us to be cut up into bits, handed over to men's sexual fetishes, and told to shut up. I'm going to leave you now with some thoughts from UK feminist Germaine Greer. She was talking on a TV program recently, and she said this: gender can be anything you like. It's entirely cultural, but sex is not cultural. It's something you're born with, whether you like it or not. And most of us who grow up to be women, who have our first period, 12, 13, 14, whatever, traumatizing or otherwise, a body we thought we knew becomes smelly and dirty and different. And then the boys come along. They've been watching pornography and say that we're not groomed enough. We have to remove our body hair and so on. We've got to spend our lives removing body hair. That's femininity, which is the fake version of femaleness. Female is real and it's sex. Femininity is unreal and it's gender. It's a role you play. And for that to become the given identity of women is a profoundly disabling notion. So then the interviewer, a man, asked her, don't you feel that you'd be able to spend more time on all those questions if you just moved on from this trans question and said, okay, fine, if you want to join us as women, then you're women. Come on, join us in the bigger struggles. Greer quickly responded, well, they're not going to help us much with postpartum psychosis, are they? Or with menstrual discomfort. I think we can manage. We are 51% of the population, and we're being held ransom by a handful of people who are extremely vocal and aggressive. And that's no surprise to any of us. But I'm not going to be hijacked for this question of gender identity. Look, I wrote a book a long time ago about how you get made into a woman. In those days, we called it conditioning, and you could see it. It happens from birth. Little baby girls are left to cry for longer than baby boys. They are fed for shorter periods than baby boys. We want them to be smaller than baby boys, and so on, and so on, and so on. And it goes right through our entire lifespan where we're learning femininity. But it's a masquerade. It's not who we really are. There is nothing feminine about being pregnant. It's almost the antithesis of that. There is nothing feminine about giving birth. It's a bloody struggle, and you've got to be brave and strong. There's nothing feminine about breastfeeding. And it just goes on and on. The masquerade is what is now being presented to us back as the real deal, with the hair extensions and the false eyelashes. And why? Why do you think that's real? So what Greer is really asking here is, why would anyone think that a man wearing femininity is real? Why would any of us think that? Well, our society is telling us to think that. Our society is telling us to believe that men who say they're women because they have a woman identity. But Greer is right. None of these men are going to help us with the many battles that we face as women. None. Those of us here today aren't having it. Women, if you're not awake yet, now is a good time to wake up. Women are going to win this. It doesn't matter how many men make silly TikTok videos documenting their, quote, days of girlhood, because we know what actual girlhood is like. Women, we're going to win. Let's go.
So our next speaker is going to be Lierre.
My name is Lierre Keith, and I'm the founder of WOLF. We're the group that's suing the state of California for putting men in women's prisons. In California, men can get transferred to the women's prison by simply declaring that they are women. Hundreds of men are now on the waiting list. What we know about men who pretend to be women: they retain the same patterns of criminality as other men, the same violent crimes, the same sexual crimes. So they can change their clothes, but nothing else changes. In fact, of the men pretending to be women in prison, fully half of them are sexual offenders. Half. Do I need to say that the women are living in terror? That the men have wasted no time in threatening and assaulting women? That the women are sleeping in shifts because they are so terrified? Women are locked in cages with rapists. Oh, be kind, they said. Use the pronouns, they said. What harm could come, they said, and here we are. A woman in England was in the hospital in what was supposed to be a woman's ward, only there was a man there, and he raped her. Now that is horrible enough, but what happened next defies description. For an entire year, both the hospital and the police refused to do anything except repeat the mantra that trans women are women, and that there was no man there, so there was no rape. An entire year. The only reason she was able to crowbar some justice out of anyone was because there was CCTV footage of the rape. It's still hospital policy, though. Men can declare themselves women and get transferred to the women's ward. Staff have been instructed to lie to women and say there is no man present. Even if he rapes you, the staff will keep telling you there is no man. Oh, be kind, they said. Use the pronouns, they said. What harm could come, they said. And here we are. In Randolph, Vermont, a teenage boy joined the girls' volleyball team and was granted access to their locker room. He sat while the girls undressed and made disgusting comments about their bodies. When the girls complained, they were thrown out of their locker room. The entire team has one single bathroom stall to change in now. Understand, instead of being protected, they are being punished. And the children, for liking the wrong color or choosing the wrong toys, children are being denied the biological integrity of their own bodies. So chemicals and surgeries that destroy their fertility, their sexual organs, their bones, hearts, livers, and their lifespans. The only word I have for this is sadism. Marcy Bowers, head of WPATH, and the doctor who mutilated Jazz Jennings' perfectly healthy organ, admits that 0 of the children, that's 0 on this protocol, will ever achieve orgasm. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but no one is listening. Perfectly healthy young children are being declared unfit and having their capacity for sexual pleasure destroyed, stolen from them before they even know what it is. How is this possible in 2023? Thousands of children who will never grow up to know. The exquisite communion where animal meets angel, where trust and pleasure entwine across every nerve and bloom into love. They will never have that. Be kind, they said. Use the pronouns, they said. What harm could come, they said. And here we are. This is a men's sexual rights movement. They've been working for decades to disguise that fact, and they've been largely successful. But that's why they need the children. Children are the human shields protecting autogynephiles and worse from public scrutiny. What was once called transvestic fetishism was rebranded as transsexualism and finally cleansed into transgenderism. Oh, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain, but they need the children for the magic trick to work. Well, you can't have them. Especially you can't have the lesbian and gay kids. You can't have them. You can't have the autistic kids. You can't have vulnerable kids, the girls barely holding on through drenching storms of violation and neglect. They need to be cosseted in safety and care, and you hand them instead an ideology of self-loathing. We are here to tell you, you can't have them. You know what else you can't have? You can't have our sports teams, our bathrooms, or our prisons. You can't have our periods. You don't menstruate. And you can't have our miscarriage support groups. Yes, these men weasel their way into miscarriage support groups, and the Be Kind women let them. You can't have our rape crisis hotlines or our homeless shelters. You can't have our pronouns. You can't have the word mother or the word lesbian. You can't. And especially, you can't have the word woman. Listen up, fetish boys. This is the sound of a woman saying no. Woman, adult, human, female. You can't have it. Is that okay?
My name is Dr. Sharon Fair, and I have one child, a daughter. Her father and I raised her right here in St. Augustine. When my daughter was young, she was a tomboy. She wore pants and boots, not dresses and sandals. She practiced tricks on her skateboard and didn't want to learn how to put on makeup. My daughter was rough and tough, and she was the best soccer goalie in her whole league, the girls' only league. Had my daughter been a teenager today, the transgender cult would have tried as hard as they could to take my daughter from me. To indoctrinate my daughter, the transgender cult would have completely avoided the word tomboy. Instead, they would have told her she is in the wrong sex body, that she's not a girl, that she's transgender, that she's a trans boy. When the transgender cult tricks a tomboy into thinking she's not a girl and instead a trans boy, certain people make a whole lot of money. They tell her how great it would be to take puberty blockers and male hormones like testosterone. These drugs cost a lot of money, and the companies who make them and the physicians who prescribe them get richer and richer every time a girl starts taking them. And there's even more money the transgender cult can make. They talk to the girls about binders to bind their breasts so they are flat to look more like a boy. They don't make a lot of money off the binders, and sometimes they even give them away free. Because when the girls are a little older, sometimes as young as 14, the transgender cult says instead of wearing a binder, she can get a bilateral mastectomy. This means, in simple words, they cut off her breasts. Certain states, like Florida, do not allow doctors to do this horrible things to little girls. Yay, Florida! But in other states, like California, the transgender cult is very powerful. And it is legal for a girl to be given these drugs and even have surgery without the girl's parents even knowing about it. If there had been a transgender cult 10 years ago, they would have noticed my tomboy daughter wearing her pants and boots instead of dresses and makeup. They would have chased her down. They would have tried to indoctrinate me too. But if they couldn't, they'd have just continued on with my daughter. They tell her I'm wrong, that I'm not accepting of who she really is. Many Americans, they don't know very much about the transgender cult. They don't think it affects them. They don't want to get involved. They just don't want to cause a fuss. Sadly, it's not until the transgender cult is trying to indoctrinate their child or their grandchild or their friend's child do they wake up and ask, well, what's this all about? Why is my daughter telling me she's transgender and not really a girl? Why is my daughter telling me she's a trans boy? I don't understand all of this. But by then, it's often too late because they've already turned the tomboy girl against everyone who disagrees with them and anyone who says the transgender movement is wrong. So how does the transgender cult do this? Well, it starts in a lot of schools. Not here in Florida, but in other states like California. Do you know what they're teaching children in your state? Are they asking them if they are really a boy or really a girl? Are they teaching them it's okay to be transgender? You need to find out. Because if you live in a place where the transgender cult is strong, they can manipulate a child as fast as wings on a hummingbird. When my daughter was young, she was a tomboy. And I just thank the stars. She's all grown up now. And the transgender cult cannot take her from me. Open your eyes. Do not let the transgender cult take your child from you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brette Smith, and I'm actually from Illinois, where they will trans your children in the schools behind your back. My daughter is a story of such. Today, though, in honor of International Women's Day, I stand before you to raise awareness of the dangers that women face at the hands of male violence. Violence has been used against women for far too long and has caused untold pain and suffering to millions of women worldwide. It is a sad reality that many women live in fear every day, not knowing whether they will become victims of domestic abuse, sexual assault, or any other form of threatening behavior. It's heartbreaking to think that in many parts of the world, women and girls also now have to add fear of the possibility of males overtaking the spaces where we are most vulnerable. Nobody deserves to live in fear or be subjected to any form of violence. Even knowing this, there are many activists and lawmakers who would happily take away women's rights to comfort and safety, to silence those who would dare speak up on behalf of safeguarding all women and children. The truth is, women are adult human females, and a male can never identify into our reality, regardless of his feelings. Time and again, those liars will physically attempt to silence women who would defy the lies that gender exists as a feeling one identifies into. The bullies do so by employing violent tactics against us and intimidating us. To make matters worse, modern gender ideologues have recruited children into their cult of cruelty. They've weaponized the myth that trans people are so at risk, convincing adults to embrace this belief that they are justified to use violence against opposition. And they encourage children to follow this lead. My family knows this all too well, as we have been subjected to this intimidation over and over again. In 2021, when my daughter was 14 years old, she claimed a trans identity and was socially affirmed by her peer group and a handful of teachers at school, unbeknownst to me. Upon discovering this, I removed her from social media and did not affirm her. The fear does not end there. The most insidious and dangerous tactic of those who tirelessly promote the false existence of gender identity is the indoctrination of children. They reach out and offer acceptance to kids who embrace their ideology. They endlessly repeat the mantra that you can have a trans kid or dead kid, while irresponsibly targeting this message to the lonely, depressed, vulnerable children, including my own. Anna was one who believed their lies, that death was the only option to not being affirmed as having a gender identity, and she attempted suicide at 14 years old. She survived therapists who confirmed that she didn't even have sex dysphoria. She tried to kill herself over a belief she no longer holds because prominent adults convinced her that it was what she needed to do. This is the violence children face when subjected to grooming by gender cultists. Within the last few months, she has been mercilessly harassed by her peers. specifically her trans-identified peers. She has been the target of threats of death and torture. The police on her case stated they had never seen such vicious and detailed violent cyberbullying before. She's now 16 years old. They used methods of psychological torture and fear of bodily harm to punish my child. Her crime? Desisting from trans and refusing to capitulate to the demands of the false gender ideology. Trans is now training children to commit acts of violence against anyone who would oppose them. We see this kind of threatening opposition frequently happening to the brave detransitioners as well, who have the courage to speak out. Today is Detransition Awareness Day. Their courage to speak about the medical and psychological brutalization they experienced at the hands of greedy lobbyists of transgenderism helped me to save my own child and protect her from irreversible damage. The pain and suffering inflicted upon detransitioners has not gone unnoticed, and sharing your story saves lives. We see you and we stand by you. We have a responsibility to defend against these vicious, hateful attacks against women who would speak up. While we recognize we cannot overpower the strength of males, there are other, even more effective means to fight back without relying on physical confrontation. For example, my family is currently taking a stance against the school for refusing to protect her from her abusers due to the abusers all identifying within the sacred class of trans. We have filed the first ever Title IX case of sex discrimination of trans-identifying children harming my own daughter on the basis of her correctly acknowledging and embracing her biological sex. We can win this fight without using the violence of our opposition. We can win by bringing forward lawsuits and legislation exposing the absurdity of their movement. Ultimately, we must do better as a society to protect women and ensure we can go about our daily lives without the threat of harm. We must listen to women's stories, empower them to speak out, and hold perpetrators accountable for their actions, regardless of their gender identity. We do this by facing down intimidation against us, exposing us for what it is. This requires bravery, persistence, and solidarity to bring awareness to the dangers of denying that human sex matters and is immutable. It is time for us to take action and protect women. This means restoring the sense of safety and dignity women have a right to enjoy, to defend our rights on the basis of the reality that makes us vulnerable to begin with, our human biological sex. In 1913, suffragette Millicent Fawcett gave a speech and iconically stated, quote, "Courage calls to courage everywhere, and its voice cannot be denied," end quote. Today, this is my call to you. May you find your courage and reclaim your power. Thank you.
It's on. Hi. We're here today to reclaim International Women's Day for women, adult human females. We don't accept that men can be women or that they should be celebrated as such. Men who call themselves women already have days. They have weeks, they have months of celebration of dignity and remembrance. We don't need to remember them on International Women's Day as well. I'm sorry that on such a beautiful sunny day, I'm also here to speak on a grim topic about another group, one that has no voice. There's no day of remembrance for people murdered by men who claim to be women. Okay. These victims are an inconvenient truth to the media and the cultural left. They seem irrelevant to members of the nominal LGBTQ community, even though many of these victims are also claimed the LGBTQ label before they were killed. The following is a list of people murdered in the United States by men who identify as women or non-binary individuals. If I had included the murderous men who did not call themselves women but had fetishes for women's clothing and underwear, this list would be twice as long. And if I included the names of sexual assault victims and attempted murder victims, we would be here for hours. Each of these 53 people died in the United States at the hands of a man who calls himself a woman or non-binary. We're going to ask for a moment of silence to remember these victims who don't have a day of their own. Christian Alvarez, Luke Anana Kuea, Flor Andrade, Daniel Aston, DeVille Lamont Avery, Shahid Ali Baig, Alice Balser, Brandy Bledsoe, Jacqueline Bonds, Michael Brandt, Kathleen Brisbois, Gasper Caballero, Stephen Delicino, Benny Diambu Wright, Ray Allen Etheridge, who was only 12 years old when he was killed, James Everett, James Fellbaum, Karima Gordon, Jason and Montana Ham, who were babies, killed by their father, who is now serving time in a women's prison in California, Robert Haney, Jackie Hawks, Tom Hawks, Emil Inman, John Peter Jarvie, Raekwon Deontay Jernigan, 17 years old, Eugene Jones II, Patricia Sue Kemmerly, Bridget Kenner, Cheryl Koselek, DeVale Lamont, Susan Layden, a prostituted woman known only as Lexi, Kelly Loving, Nikki Lowe, Kimani Muhammad, Jose Paula Matos, Ray Muscat, Ashley Paw, Mary Perkins, Patricia Ann Rader, who is only an infant at 20 months old, Charlotte Reed, Jennifer Robinson, Don Rogers, Derrick Rump, Yolanda Sapp, Kenneth Savinsky, Carlo Secondino, Karen Sharp, Anna Laura Sierra, Bishop Taverner, Raymond Vance, Ebony Williams, and Patricia Wright. I ask for a moment of silence to mourn the loss of these victims. Thank you.
I'm Austin DeVille, a volunteer at WDI USA. International Women's Day is for women, adult human females. It is not for men who wear the oppressive stereotypes of femininity and pretend that makes them women. International Women's Day was created because women have been oppressed on the basis of sex, not femininity, for thousands of generations. Women have succeeded at long last in getting some governments to recognize that we are just as human as men and should be entitled to full human rights. Since we are supposed to have these rights now, many people assume that we're all free and equal. But women are still largely regarded as sexual objects, unpaid domestic servants, breeding machines, and personal assistants to men everywhere in the world. Only recently has it been officially recognized by some governments that it is unjust to confine women to a subordinate role to men in society, and already misogynists are attempting to reverse that progress. Only recently has it been analyzed and articulated that common cultural beauty practices limit and harm us and keep us from being taken seriously and treated as full human beings. Most women remain complacent with, and many are even fond of, these degrading roles and practices. Some women have internalized the hatred of their bodies enough to think that these poisonous rituals give them real power. Male supremacist culture goes to great lengths to hide the truth from us and train girls to accept this self-harm as normal, attractive, and required, before we are seasoned enough to realize that it is typical for the abused to defend their abusers, and that it is a common coping mechanism of the oppressed to endorse.
the procedures that constitute their oppression. We are worth more than what they want us for. But we are culturally programmed from babyhood to think that embracing painful, expensive, time-consuming beauty routines is the only way we can live a satisfying life and connect to power. Because most women are unaware of the part they are playing in this system of oppression, men's rights activists are easily erasing our human rights. It is downright insulting to watch these men co-opt our assertion of oppression through the use of aesthetic procedures that they have historically prescribed to us women, such as wearing makeup and contorting, revealing clothing, using chemical hair and nail treatments, and having breast augmentation surgeries. As men, they know these practices are degrading. They are taking the elements of our oppression and rubbing them in our faces because they can, and they know there's nothing we can do about it because we are the truly oppressed. We are the ones who are kept powerless. They are blatantly insulting us this way while advancing themselves as better candidates for women's achievements and strengthening the societal pattern of male dominance, which is buttressed by sex-based stereotypes, what our culture generally refers to as gender. Our oppressors are now using our degradation in a whole new way, using the harmful trappings of femininity to colonize the culture's perception of womanhood itself. Men's sexual rights activists have tricked women into celebrating the relinquishment of our protections from them and into perceiving them as oppressed like us. They are, of course, doing all of this while not being used as breeding machines and unpaid servants to men, and they're getting off on it. In order to be respected as full human beings, we need to withdraw our participation in the rejection and hatred of our fully formed human bodies. We need to start living proudly in our natural forms and refuse the sexist procedures that keep us pinned beneath men. We need to withdraw the sexual energy that men demand of us and build their empires on. We have to realize as a class that we are worth more than that. We need to withdraw our cooperation with their toxic standards, which many of us have come to see as our measure of value, and realize that they are actually holding us back from our potential and advancement. We have to prioritize ourselves and our children from the perversion of men in woman face, trying to use the indicators of our oppression to make themselves look like the victims in the room, while grooming children into accepting grotesque feminine stereotypes as the marks of harmlessness, rather than the womanhood itself. Men's rights activists won't let us speak publicly about this because when we speak about our experience as an oppressed class of human beings, they are named as the predators and perpetrators they are, rather than the victims they're claiming to be. This is for the girls who have to change in front of a male coach who says he's a woman because those in power are not willing to stand up for their privacy and dignity against a men's sexual rights movement. This is for the women who have trained their hardest for the sports they love, just to find out that they will be competing against men twice their size because those in power will not stand up and say that this is unfair. This is for the women who have to sleep in prison cells with convicted rapists tonight because those in power won't stand up for their safety and rehabilitation. This is for the moms and little girls who have to change into their swimsuits in front of perverted creeps accessing female-only spaces for this particular purpose because those in power won't stand in their way. Those in power are the ones for whom it is the safest to speak up about these atrocities. And the pathetic reason they don't is because they might lose the support of misogynists by making a controversial statement. Rather than suffer any loss of popularity or pay, they will sacrifice these women and girls as if they don't matter as much as the next election. We need to make ourselves known so that those in power know that they will gain our support. For us, the rights and safety of women and girls is the most important political issue, as it should be for every woman. I will speak for you, even if you won't or can't speak for yourself. I will stand for your safety and dignity, and I will never stop demanding the enforcement of your human rights, no matter how unpopular it makes me. You deserve respect, you deserve protection, and you deserve to be defended. What is happening to you is wrong, and I will continue doing everything I can to compel those in power to make these injustices stop. Anybody else want to say anything?
Good.
Okay, then I'm going to go. first, and I'm going to talk to Thistle to end the live stream. If anyone wants to come up and say anything to the live stream audience, you're welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you for watching.
All right, it looks like they are finishing up, and we've got Austin here back with us. Great speech, Austin.
Thank you. Could you hear everyone okay?
Yep, the sound was good, and we got lots of really great comments and lots of women who attended online. Christina from Norway, Judy C, Christina Goki from Colorado, Jenna, Judy from, I think, is it called Courage? What is the name of her group? But you know Judy C. Lots of great women who came today. You've got Turf Mail, and the speeches were fierce. You packed a punch.
Thank you so much for joining, everyone.
Yeah. And so now are you ladies going to go off and gather like at a restaurant or something? That's what we usually do after we have a speaking event.
That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go find a cafe or something and debrief, and we're going to mingle here for a little bit, I think. We have a bunch of passersby and a bunch of people who look really interested in what we have to say. So we're going to probably...
that's wonderful.
Yeah, there's a lot of tourists around here in Florida. You know, it's just so turf friendly. It's lovely.
Yeah, so the TRAs didn't show up today, huh?
I haven't seen anybody who wants to oppose us. We've seen some people who we think, you know, maybe questioning and maybe not agree fully with us, but nobody has tried to interfere or anything like that.
Great, and you've got a beautiful sunny day there, and now you can go take a load off, debrief, and just enjoy that sisterhood.
Yeah, thank you so much for helping us live stream. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Best.
All right, well, until next time,
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for your work.
Thank you for yours.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, so this has been a WLRN live stream of the WDI USA event in St. Augustine, Florida, in honor of International Women's Day, which they say is for adult human females, and WLRN says that as well. It's wonderful to see everybody in the chat. Thanks for joining, and I hope you'll join us for our next live stream of Women Speak Florida. They are coming up next. I got my times mixed up a little bit. I thought that this one was going to be starting an hour later. So I'm pretty sure the next one is starting at, let's see, gosh, I'm embarrassed. I'm still live and I can't remember. Let me check it. I'm going to check it on the YouTube channel. You know, when you go live, you get a little nervous sometimes, sisters, and you may forget things that you normally would easily remember. But I'm going to the WLRN YouTube channel, and I am going to the live videos. And the next one is scheduled for 11:30 a.m. And I believe that is Florida time, or that might be, let's see. It says in 109 minutes from now. So that I believe is, anyway, y'all can figure it out. I'm really embarrassed right now that 2 p.m. EST, Pinwheel. All right, thank you so much. So 2 p.m. EST is 1 p.m. here in Madison, and 11 a.m. Pacific. All right, thank you. If you look at the video, I'm going to look at these comments after. I'm just going to sign off, and then I'm going to actually do the comments disappear. I want to see what you're saying. If you look at the video, it will tell everyone for their time zone. Okay, so for my time zone, the Central Time. All right, well, thank you so much. 1 p.m. Central Time. It's hard, Thistle, right on. But I've enjoyed it. I hope that you'll all tune in to the next Turf Tea Time as well. We haven't scheduled it yet, but we've got a group of ladies. Christina, in particular in Colorado, I want to brainstorm some ideas with you because what you said was so inspiring about just going out to your local St. Patty's Day events and flyering and talking to people. I mean, TERFs are real people. We go out, we can just, we need to take up space in the public sphere. And I think that we've got a group of women in Madison that are wanting to do that too. So we should get together sometime and brainstorm ideas about that. April. That's April. She's hi April. See you at the next one. Fantastic. And you too, Pinwheel. Excited to see you at the next one. All right, ladies. Mwah. Have a great hour or so, hour and a half until the next one. See you. Bye-bye.